It was back in January 2011. It was a devastating effect. Obviously, it was the worst flood in living memory. We had 3 floods that year. We had a September flood, which was quite significant, but didn't do any large amount of damage. Then in November we had a significant flood which did minor damage, and that was the biggest flood that was in 100 years. But then in January, the flood was the biggest flood they've ever recorded. It completely overtopped the building for some point in time and completely destroyed all facilities at the Newbridge Recreation Reserve. So it affected all user groups, being the football and netball club, the tennis, the cricket, and the general use in the Newbridge community. And with the velocity of the water and the trash and debris that was being carried with that velocity, as well as some other buildings on the reserve being uplifted and smashed into the main club rooms, that's when a significant amount of damage was done.
Yeah, 1909, the last flood came through here at that height, and it was about 200 mil higher, and it shows on the brickwork in the house than what it is now. The flood that went through in January. Got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the water was down the back of the old cow shed and coming in the back paddock there, and within probably 6 hours it was entering the house, and peaked around about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and the main flow of water peaked. So yeah, and then about midnight it started to just go down again.
So how high was the water inside your house?
The water was pretty much exactly a metre, which would be about that height. Like I say, you sort of blowing bubbles if you're sitting at the table here now. So yeah, that was the peak of the flood. Yeah.
We went through a whole gamut of emotions. One day would be different from the next. It wasn't so much the material side of things straight up, it was more the fact that Roger had put so much work into bringing his family home back to life, and he'd spent about 3 years, putting the love back into the home and making it look lovely, and probably only a week off finishing, and it was all sort of destroyed pretty much and had to be started again. So that he had to do when we got cleaned up, but we couldn't do that straight away, of course, because of the amount of drying out that had to happen. So we lived with our daughter for a couple of weeks, and then we lived in our camper van for about 3 weeks, and then Roger got the unit down in the shed. We made a bedroom and like a little unit down in the shed. He repaired all that, and we lived there for 6 months or more until the house dried out enough for us to repaint, but we still haven't finished everything. We've still got a sand floors and that because there's still moisture in the walls. The paint's peeling off some of the walls and that, but Roger needed to get this done because he had a very busy year and just had to put the emotions aside and get stuck into it. We had a lot of help from friends in our local community and the football club and netball club, so it was very much a roller coaster year. Yeah.
And what sort of a cost was the damage?
The cost, it's still being quantified as we speak, because there's a lot of, we still, at this point in time, the tender for the building hasn't closed, but it's well in excess of $2 million.
And as a club and a wider community, has it brought you closer together?
Definitely, yeah. It's early on in the piece we had to come together through user group meetings, and yeah, each user group has its priorities and agendas, and they have different uses of the building. Yeah, so we've had to come together and be more unified